back to the channel. My name is Crawford. This is Virginia is for Lowriders. And we need to get some work done. We've been working on this Mazda for what feels like forever, and I'm trying to drive it. The new goal, because a lot of people have asked me, and at first I was like, I don't know if I'm really going to try and make it. But the goal now is, because I actually scheduled it off for work, is to make it to mini nats. Fingers crossed that that happens. If I have to rent a truck and tow this turd there, we're going to go. I'm trying to get a couple of my buddies to go. So that's the game plan. I don't know where I'm going to sleep. I don't know where I'm going to park this turd. I know, of course, it's not going to be in the show, but I'm going to at least bring it with me 7.5 hours away. That way people can see the turd, because I've actually had a lot of people ask me about it, and I've had a lot of people ask me if I'm going to go. So that's the plan. We need to get a lot of work done. So hopefully, at least while it's there, it can move under its own power. I got about 2 months to get as much as done as I can possibly do. I was really trying to get the cab at least painted and the jams done and all that stuff before it left the garage, because I know getting projects back in the garage is next to impossible for me. So I need to stop by the paint shop, like I think I said a couple videos ago, sometime in the next 2 weeks, and get some paint so we can do the jams and the whole, actually just the whole cab minus the doors. That way once the fenders are on, they don't have to come back off until everything gets painted. The doors won't have to come back off, and then yada yada yada. So if you didn't tune in last week, make sure you go back and check out all the old videos. There's a whole lot of them now. We're up to like 30, I think. Last week we tackled the brake lines in the front. We made up some tabs on the control arms, some tabs here. We relocated the lower shock mounts. We did a whole lot of stuff. Wasn't super exciting work, but it's extreme progress. And this week, I came out here without the camera and knocked out this side. And it looks just as good as the other side. And this week, I came out here because I figured y'all didn't really need to see it happen. And I ground all of that clean. It all looks nice and fancy. I made up some of these plates. These plates are going to be welded in here. All of this is going to be filled in. So this needs to get done this weekend. That way that front cross member can get painted and finalized, so I can start running wire throughout here. And then after that's done, besides the brake lines and wiring, that's the whole engine bay tied up. There's a lot of wiring and plumbing and all of that stuff, but it's part of it. So I try to ADD myself around here, because I can't just concentrate on one thing. So we do a lot of bouncing around. If you've never been around here before, sounded kind of weird. If you've never been here before, we bounce around. It helps the progress happen. I don't know. I'm going to try and not ramble a lot this weekend. I tried to do it last weekend, and it worked to an extent, but I don't know. I just got to get something done. We got to try and, I don't know. For some reason, it's hard for me. It's easy to do the big stuff. Knock out huge chunks of progress, like when it's a 3-link and when it's the exhaust and when it's like huge things like tubs. The little tiny work takes forever for me, because I can't just sit here and concentrate on it. It just doesn't work. Oh, another thing I did was remove all of the paint from the gearbox, so that way it can get painted up like this guy did last weekend. Nice and pretty, and all that can get painted. So we need to get booster bolted up, get some brake lines started. I'm going to make a small bracket for this guy. This from the factory is mounted like right here. So brake lines come all the way over here, go into that, split off of that, and then go back around and all that. My idea, because I have a newer truck, like a 92 in the backyard, it's mounted something like this. My plan is to mount it somewhere in here, little bracket to come off of this guy. I don't know, we got to figure that out. So we got things to do. Not sure what order, exactly what we're going to do, but we're going to stop. We're just going to shut up and we're going to get something done. That's the plan. Never been here before? Check out the old videos. Don't forget to subscribe, do all the normal YouTube-y stuff, and let's just jump into it. I got some belts, I got some lugs. We're going to mess with this first. Hopefully these fit. It's like the 4th time I went to the parts store and they had to order these because they're like oddball sizes, I guess. So we're going to see if we can get the alternator actually hooked back up and tied together, hopefully with a belt that fits. Maybe we can get the battery box mounted this weekend, start all of that process, because there's a whole lot of wiring attached to that. Maybe we can just shut up again and try and get something done again. That's the plan. Fingers crossed that these fit, or at least one of these fit. Maybe we'll try the longer one first. I really don't want to go back to the parts store again. It'd be nice if they both fit and they had options. Oh, that one fits right on there. And it's too big. Okay. Second belt. Second belt actually fits. So, if you were to remove, again, Mazda guys, this is a Miata alternator. It's an upgrade. It's like 130 amps or whatever I got. If you were to remove the fan and run an alternator from the crank to this alternator, which I'm pretty sure that the pulley's the same as a factory one, the belt for that is this. I'm assuming it's the same. This is a little long, so if your factory alternator maybe has a larger pulley, you get the idea. This will get you close. You can go from there. For all my Mazda guys, if you are looking for an aftermarket oil cap, for whatever reason, they don't list these trucks on pretty much any website unless it's this big old gaudy huge oil cap that only comes in really terrible colors usually. So after doing some cross-referencing and going through a bunch of websites, I figured out that RX-7s and a bunch of other random Mazdas from similar generations of this actually utilize the same oil cap. So this is a cap that was on eBay. It's like $11. It's made for an RX-7 and it actually fits right onto these things, and it fits well. It doesn't really fit the theme or whatever you want to call this so far, and I can't leave anything alone, so I think I'm going to cut it off flush with this part, and it'll basically look like an aluminum version of the factory cap. It should be close to the same height, and then I'll probably polish it out to look like the valve cover and the intake and everything else that I couldn't leave alone. So what's weird, I figured I'd point it out, is it looks sloppy in there, but even the factory cap, same thing. Until you get it all the way tight, it's floppy. Not really sure the idea behind that is, but same thing here. Sloppy it actually tightens down. I don't know. Figured I'd notate that. I can put a link up for anybody interested. I got it off eBay. Again, it's like $12, I think. Hopefully, I can reach back up in here. I don't know about y'all, but I am not made for laying under dashboards anymore. As the older I get, the less and less I want to do it. I also need to go to the junkyard and find the spring for the return for the clutch pedal, because when I was welding the clutch pedal assembly together, that spring became the ground and it got so hot that it relaxed and it's no longer a spring. It's just a noodle. Never mind the fact that it looks like a child drew that. Well, I came out here last night and was talking to the camera and we was doing stuff. We was getting stuff knocked out. At one point I went inside and refilled my tea glass, and usually when I do that, I'll turn my microphones off just to preserve batteries, because that's a ongoing thing. Is I don't know how long the batteries last, but they usually don't last as long as I'm out here in the garage. So I try and turn them off to conserve battery juice. And I didn't turn this part back on when I came back in the garage. And I was talking to the camera a lot. And I don't know, I got the footage, so maybe I'll try and voice over on top of that, explain what I'm doing. But I don't know what's going on out there. Sirens are going crazy for a while. I got the master cylinder, booster, all of that stuff is bolted to the truck. Got that little bracket made up and painted. Got the proportioning valve attached to the bracket and lines attached to it. So now we need to make lines from the booster proportioning valve thing over to the passenger side. There would be a new line going from the clutch master cylinder to that side, and then another line going to that side for the rear. So I'll show you all real quick what we got done last night. This is where we're at so far. It's looking pretty good. Nice and symmetrical and tidy. The little bracket turned out pretty good. I'm assuming that thing can just be mounted in any direction. I don't really think it would matter which way I have it mounted. So now, let me see here. This is the rear, so I need to come out of this guy. I think I'm going to run it along this cross member under the oil pan. It'll pop out of here, and then it'll go towards the rear. The other one, do the same thing. It'll come over to the passenger side front. Then the clutch master cylinder, it just sat in there. That needs to get bolted up. It actually takes the same exact size brake line. This needs to come off of here in some sort of direction. I left holes for drainage in the corners of these things. I'm kind of thinking I might run that along this thing over there. The reason I'm saying that, I didn't realize how long these clutch slave cylinder hoses are. This thing was mounted up on the firewall, so it's excessively long. So I gotta figure out, I ordered a new one because I didn't realize how rough this thing was. We're gonna get this mocked up and a line attached to it today. I just don't know where it's going to live in this area. It has one of those tabs like we made for the brake lines attached to the firewall, and this is the other end of it. This thing is just excessive, so I need to figure out what to do with all of this. So yeah, that's the plan. We're gonna keep knocking out these brake lines. I'll be happy if I just get them ran over to here tonight. I don't necessarily care about running them to the rear because the rear isn't finished. I still have to do stuff in here, so not too worried about that. At some point this weekend I'd like to get the wheels off, take the wheel cylinders out of the hubs, put new ones in, get the new drums on. That way I can start plumbing the rear end. With the microphone on, we're going to do stuff. And then maybe after I knock out some brake lines, we will finally weld up this stuff to the frame. Oh yeah, last night I got the last little bit of paint off of this guy and primed it. That way all of this can get painted. Most likely this is all just going to get that bed liner stuff. That's the way it was before. It's just there were so many layers of paint on there that it was actually chipping, and that wasn't from me, but it'll get cleaned up and resprayed. I didn't really feel like it was necessary to take it off the frame, so I think it's okay just getting sprayed in place. So yeah, I'll stop rambling and knock some stuff out. So I actually, again, I explained this last night, but I wasn't actually talking to anybody. I bought these Gorilla Ties. I don't know if that's a good brand. I don't know. I've seen a whole bunch of brands that they're the exact same thing. So don't get hung up on the brand if you can't find whatever Gorilla Ties is. So they're marketed as, I don't know, there's a guy hanging a leaf blower from his garage ceiling, guys holding extension cords and shopping bags. I guess it's like a bendy, I don't know, zip tie, or I would never put it in place of a ratchet strap, but it says it holds 200 pounds. These things are really nice for mocking up brake lines or mocking up airlines or anything that needs to be bent in a weird shape, because you can continue to bend them over and over and over. I haven't broken one yet, and I've had these for a while. So you can keep reusing them and then straightening them back out. So I'll take this, I'll bend it in whatever funky shape, and then hold it up next to the brake line and bend the brake line in the exact same shape. Make sense? Because this is 3/16 steel brake line. I was going to use that copper, zinc, something or another stuff that's really easy to work with, but I bought a brake flaring tool that works very, very well. I'm extremely surprised and happy with how well it works. I've seen these things all over the internet, and usually it's just one size. This one does 1/4 and 3/16. It only does 45s, which if you're doing brake lines, you want 45 anyway. I'm not flaring, I don't know, AN line or whatever uses a single flare. So it works out. And that thing works surprisingly well, and you can use it in place. I bought that fancy Eastwood one, wherever that thing is, and it was kind of expensive. I found the eBay version, which looks identical to the Eastwood one, but at literally a third of the price. The only problem with that guy is whenever I tried to crimp that copper zinc stuff, it just ruined it. It ruined it over and over and over. I actually talked about it in another video. So I figured, I have this steel line that I've had for years. I bought it to do my Caprice, and I might as well use it, and that thing actually crimps it. So I don't know. It's coated, it's strong, it doesn't bend nearly as easy. But another tool that I bought, I've had these benders forever. These are so old. These are Blue Point, and they're so old that they were made in America. If that puts any kind of a idea on the age of them, Blue Point stuff's been made in China for a long time, or Taiwan, or wherever. Found these, which again, you can buy these from anybody. You can get these off Amazon for like 20 bucks. It just has a 45 on the end, and they work, again, surprisingly well. And you can do super tight, simple bends with such a simple tool. I don't know. The combination of these two with these weird tie things, I think I got a system down that I'm going to continue to go to. Yeah. We're going to make some lines because I'm rambling again. So, give you an example here. This is my rear. Let's do the front because the rear I'm going to try and do in one shot. So this is the front. I'm probably going to run the line over and down to avoid the steering stuff. We're going to come out of there. Try and do this where my hands aren't in the way the entire time. Something like that, maybe. Of course, it looks like it's going to touch everything because this tie thing is way bigger, but follow along with that other brake line. Dodge around there. So you can see what I'm trying to achieve here. We're going to go around the control arm, around the other brake line, around the steering, down, around, and eventually over that cross member. So now you can take this guy, out of here, and whatever funky shape you come up with, transfer that over to that. I own quite a few brake flaring tools. I have a Blue Point one, I got the Eastwood thing, I've used my buddy's hydraulic thing. The hydraulic one is nice, but there's no way that it's worth the $400 or whatever it is. I guess if you were working at a dealership and you were doing brake lines all the time, I could see it, but most new cars, they make the brake lines in kits now, so it really doesn't make any sense. Out of all of them, I think this thing has won me over on ease of use and quality of flare. A lot of them put, when you crimp them, like I'm crimping this right now, a lot of them put little ridges in the end of the brake line. This one doesn't really put the little ridges in there, which is surprising. I think it's because the clamp holds it over a wider surface area, I guess. But a little bit of grease. I don't know how loud that wire is moving around, or that line is moving around. I apologize if it's loud. I feel like the effort that you have to put into this is significantly less than the other tools. Excuse the grease on it. It's just the stuff for assembling it. But super nice flares. This is what I was talking about. Normally there would be a bunch of grooves dug into this portion, but this thing surprisingly doesn't do that. I think it's because most of the time the surface is being held by something about this big, and now it's being held by, I don't know, whatever that is, an inch or so. Alright, so I've been meaning to do it for months now. I pulled the old compressor harness out from underneath of all of this because it was just wrapped around all this stuff. Got under there and cut out all of the old air lines going to everything. So now, as of right now, this is the only wiring that will hopefully be attached to the engine in its entirety. There'll be a little bit more for the distributor later. So I got this brake line in, plumbed underneath. I got a couple little rubber isolator clamps holding it in place. I can't get my impact in there to drill or to even use a self tapper or whatever to hold that in place, so I'm gonna have to figure that out later. I think I came up with an idea. So from the factory, it goes from the master cylinder all the way over into the proportioning valve on this side, and then from the proportioning valve to the rear to a little junction thing, then to the rear end. Since I put everything on this side, I can either run the rear end brake line along the driver's side, which I don't know if I really want to mess with that because everything else is ran on this side. Fuel, there's going to be power over there, there's going to be everything else for the entire truck's going to be on that side, so I kind of want to keep it over there. But since I moved the proportioning valve to the other side of the truck, it makes it to where that line would be really, really long and really complicated to go from here underneath the engine over to here, then to the back. So I think what I'm going to do I'll look on the parts truck to see if it has another one of these. This is a factory little junction block from Mazda. I'm going to see if the parts truck has another one of these things on it. And if it does, it'll be essentially the same thing as what it was before. It'll come from over there to over here, and I'll have that little junction block here. And then that way, that's just that short line here, short line under the cab, from the junction to the rear. It's 3 pieces, but it's not splices like whenever people say don't use splices in rear or in brake lines. They're talking about those like on the side of the road, weird compression fitting things, not a hard mounted actual little junction block. So I think we're good on the brake lines for now. Everything's looking good. I need to find, I set this back in here and got the steering hooked back up. I gotta figure out what I do with that bolt, and I think we're gonna take a break from brake lines until I figure out my little junction block idea. I'm gonna move on to patching this in. If I figure out the junction block thing in the morning, I'll take it off that truck and make that. At the same time, I'll make the clutch master line. We're rambling. We're going to do some welding. I need to get the front of the frame rail done. If I get the front welded up and painted, I can paint the steering box, and that will be all of the framework on the front of the truck finished. That'd be really good progress. And then we can move on to getting the wiring tucked in here, get the bumper on. I need to bring the bumper in at some point between today and tomorrow and set that on the truck, because I don't know where to run all of the wires for the turn signal and stuff that are on the bumper. I'd like to have the bumper in here in order to do all that. And the other thing is I got to cut off a lot of them plugs because a lot of them are damaged from the truck being 30 some odd years old. So let's do some welding. Maybe we'll do a little bit of grinding underneath. I've been trying to chip away at that because I cannot stand laying under this thing and grinding. So yeah, stop rambling, move some stuff out of the way, and get some welding done. All right, now that it is almost midnight, I feel like I've been out here forever. Been out here since, I don't know, 3 o'clock this afternoon. I don't think I made nearly enough progress for the amount of time that I've been out here. But it actually looks like we're getting somewhere now. It's amazing. The steering box is painted. The frame is plated. Everything is clean. All of that's been painted. It's looking somewhat finished now. I know it's flat black and it's kind of boring, but still. The frame rails are done. I shouldn't have to modify any of the frame rail stuff up here at all anymore. So now we can start bolting stuff to it. I'm going to let this dry for the rest of the night. We're going to bounce back and forth doing something else now. But yeah, looking pretty good. So now, starting to get set up over here. There's a factory leaf ring perch mounted to here on both sides from the factory. And there is rusty crap underneath of those. And the people before had a reverse 4-link on this, and they had their mounts welded to that mount with some bracing, and there was just globs of crap welded to the bottom of this frame. And I came out here the other day and spent hours grinding and cleaning up stuff and chipped away at the mound of stuff on there. So now I just have a little bit left to cut off and grind smooth, and then we can mount our battery box onto the frame in some way. Part of me thinks that I really should have my buddies come over and help me set the bed on there to make sure that battery box is going to clear. But who knows when that's going to be, because I have to move all kinds of stuff, and having them lined up to where they're not busy with their lives might not work out. So we're just going to mount it to the frame and hope the bed fits around it. That would really suck. Hopefully I don't have to revisit this video to bring this back up again. So that's what we're doing. We're going to cut some stuff off the bottom of the frame, get it all clean and pretty, and try and figure out how to mount that thing. It's already midnight, so I'll probably stop after the frame is clean and pick it back up in the morning. But we got to get that last little bit of progress in before I go to bed. Alright, it is Sunday morning-ish. We're gonna go back here in the white trash collection of stuff through the swamp of my backyard because it's been raining for the last 2 days. Let's see if we can find that brake thing on the parts truck. I'm not sure if they're the same, being that the parts truck is like 6 years-ish newer than mine, and it changed a lot of stuff around. Let's see. Can't even see it. The parts truck has officially been here long enough to have stuff growing through the side of it. Well, there it is, behind the gas tank. Let's see if I can finagle my way in there and try and take that out of there. So hopefully you can actually see it. I can't tell because the camera's kind of washed out from the sun. But from the factory, this one's a little different because the portioning valve is mounted to the actual booster. But you can see it goes all along the top of that, then over here. So it's kind of complicated. Since the master's over there, I'm going to see if I can find how the rear brake line is connected on this side. I wouldn't think that the brake line is one piece all the way from there all the way to the back of the truck, but I'll figure it out. Okay, essentially Mazda, I'm doing what Mazda did. They used, the line comes in, loops around over here and goes to this, and then they use a soft line to connect to another junction to go to the back. So I'm essentially doing the same thing minus the soft line part. I'll be using that little junction thing in the back. This thing's in pretty rough shape. Hopefully we can bring it back to at least usable. Just a little better. Got some pits, but nothing too terrible. Let's see if I can get the fittings out of it. Maybe mount it somewhere in there. That way it's easy to get to. It's not like in the way. So everything cleaned up. I think I want to put it here. The same problem I was running into last night. I don't have anything to drill. I don't have anything to fit in here to drill this. So I have a right angle drill at work. I think I need to bring home. I can drill, tap this, and then run the little clamps on this also at the same time. So at least we have a game plan for this week. We'll pick that back up. I think now, to get it out of my system, we're going to get rid of the last little bit of remaining green on the truck. And I'm pretty positive this is it. There's no more green to worry about. The only thing left are the brakes. So I'm going to pull these wheels off. We're going to place the wheel cylinders and we're going to put the new drums on. If I remember correctly, I didn't order shoes because the shoes were in good shape. So we're going to do a little bit of mechanical work and then maybe we'll wrap it up with the battery box because I edited everything this morning and we're already past 40 minutes. So I try not to make the videos an hour long because I know I can't sit through an hour long of me rambling, and I doubt that any of y'all can either. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to wrap some stuff up real quick, and I'll probably spend the rest of the day putting brakes on my daily driver that I bought a month and a half ago. Yeah, priorities, you know, project truck that it's been sitting in the garage for months, or the car you drive every single day and the brakes are kind of jacked up. Yeah, priorities. Well, just spent the last hour looking for the brake master cylinders, so that was a wonderful waste of time. And now it looks like it's going to rain outside, so we're not working on the daily driver like I said I was going to. Oh, that is really rounded off. That's nice. I know that one of these days I need to take this axle apart and put axle seals in it, because one of them was seeping the first time I worked on it. It was probably seeping from lack of being driven, because it looks like somebody built this thing in the 90s and it sat in somebody's garage for who knows how long. So that's on the list, but for now, got new wheel cylinders, got the new drums, and I see why I didn't order shoes, because these were never adjusted right and they look brand new, and it looks like they were only making contact like just barely. So shoes aren't needed. Wheel cylinders are always questionable. Figure it's just good practice to replace them, because from Rock Auto, these are literally like $3 or something crazy for a box that doesn't even have a brand on it. See if we can do this the lazy way. Yeah, those are kind of questionable. They don't look that old, but they got an awful lot of rust on them. These will get saved and put with the massive pile of, maybe I'll use that if I'm in a pinch one day, parts. The internet has changed everything so much. Whenever I first started working on stuff, which wasn't crazy long ago, I remember my dad would rebuild everything. We would rebuild calipers, we'd rebuild the wheel cylinders, we'd rebuild alternators, starters, it didn't matter. CarQuest sold a rebuild kit. Now, you can't even buy the rebuild kits from anywhere. It's ridiculous. Everything is just replaced now. I don't even think people know how to rebuild anything anymore. The backing plates will get painted at the same time as the rear, but at least there's new parts installed. I think I'll save painting that at the same time as the rear, because the rear is going to get pulled out and completely painted. Alright, so got the wheel cylinders in, the drums on, and I got a little distracted and cleaned up the welding that was on the outside of the notch from when I welded the U-bolts to the rear to keep everything in center, and the pinion and all that when I set up the 3-link. So I got that cleaned up on both sides, started priming and grinding and sanding, and I got a little carried away with that and I had to make myself stop, because it just keeps going and going and going. And yeah. And then I got the battery box set in place. Right now, I'm utilizing the bolts from the factory bumper. I want to do another one, basically somewhere down here, just to get a little bit more rigid. I put this little shelf on the back. There won't be any bolts going through the little L thing. My idea behind this is it's kind of like hutch and everything is held on a toolbox just by a little hook. It's being supported by this. There's weight being held by this. That way the bolts aren't solely doing all of the work. But if I had to, for whatever reason, remove this battery box with the bed on and I had bolts up here, it would be next to impossible to get. There's going to be an air tank in here and compressors and wires, and I think it'd be simpler if there was just bolts going through the side. Then I'm going to make a little bracket off the bottom. Yeah, it's all thought through, even though it doesn't seem like it. So I got my little bolt checker thing out, figured out it is an M12 by 1.5. I thought I had some. Turns out these are actually standard. So I'm going to get some of these. I'll get a third one. Either I'll do a riv nut or weld an actual nut into the side of the frame for the third hole. But I'll get some of these. That battery has a little foot on the bottom. The little foot actually keeps it away enough to where the head of one of these bolts would never come in contact with the side of the battery like these would. So right now that thing's pretty stout with just those two bolts. It'll get 3, it'll get a bottom bracket, it'll get tied together later. I'm kind of running out of time. I got a little carried away with this, and then while I was looking for the wheel cylinders, that turned into me cleaning. So I looked for them for like an hour, and I cleaned for like an hour and a half, even though you can't really tell. But there is floor, and I can actually get around, which turned into me setting the fenders and the grill on, because sometime this week I'm going to be starting to tackle the wiring. So I need to take the fender off and on to make sure that I am not going to come into contact with, anything as far as the fender goes. There's actually a little cavity in here where a loomed set of wires could actually rest, but I need to put the fender on and off just to make sure. So yeah, we actually made progress this weekend, which is awesome. Hopefully we can continue to do this every weekend. I'm going to attempt to get to the paint shop probably next weekend. I don't know if it's going to be this weekend. Just paid the mortgage. That puts a little dent in the old banking account. So next weekend we'll pick up paint, and I don't know. We just need to get some stuff done. And there is more green. I thought all the green was gone. There's no green on the truck now. And then I forgot that these artists here painted the drive shaft like a barber pole for whatever terrible reason. So you can see the way it used to be set up. I touched the cab. But yeah, I got to figure out how to get all that crap off of there and paint that up. So yeah. So I'm going to call it for the weekend. Go in here and edit this and hopefully go to bed before 1 o'clock in the morning. So I'll see y'all next week. Again, if you've never been here before, don't forget to go check out all of the old videos. Everything that I've done to this thing I've recorded. And do all the other subscribing and likes and whatnot. Yeah, thanks for watching. Check back in next Sunday. Every Sunday. Post every Sunday, no matter what. Even if it's